What's going to be with Iran? Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terror. A lot of the terrorist organizations are just arms of Iran. Iran is the head of the snake in that region. And Iran wasn't always like that. In fact, the Iranian people predominantly are very moderate and good people that were taken over by these ayatollahs in the late 1970s. Check out this clip over here with the son of the Shah, meaning the former ousted leader, the crown prince of Iran, as he denounces the Iranian regime, and we hope for a better future in Iran together. Check out this clip. You're not going to want to miss what he says over here. Before you do, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
We are talking while we are in Israel at the height of a very difficult war with terrorist organizations trying to basically destroy Israel. You know, on October 6, 2023, we were still treating each front separately. Now it is clear to us that they are all branches, proxies of the regime in Iran. Do you see it this way as well?
Well, you know, it's not a secret that the regime from its very inception had only one objective, and that was to export a radical ideology at the expense of his own people, and by means of proxies bring it about in the region and beyond. This started 46 years ago. Unfortunately, the fact that the regime was not pressed from the outside world and was allowed to continue this campaign of proxy wars led to unfortunate events that the latest victim of it was again the terrorist attack on October 7th by the proxy, this time of Hamas. And of course Hezbollah has been out there for decades now antagonizing Israel, certainly as instrument of the regime's aggression abroad. And that's no secret to any of us.
Yeah, but what we do feel are winds of change in the Middle East, in Syria and Lebanon today, in the funeral of Nasrallah and his successor, with Israeli planes flying overhead above the mourners, and even in Gaza, maybe with the help of the U.S. President Trump. If we add to that the fact that the Iranian regime was attacked by Israel, and you yourself said that Iran is weaker than it has ever been, and the protest that took place on Iran's Revolution Day on February 10th in Iran, is there an opportunity here? And is now the time?
Absolutely. I think that in more than 4 decades, this regime today is at its weakest that it's ever been. And at the same time, within Iran itself, there was never a time where Iranians themselves were most ready for that change. Today they're calling for an end to this regime. They need to understand that the only way to solve the problem ultimately and terminally is to put an end to this regime. Why? Because unlike this regime and its DNA of antagonism, the Iranian people, unlike the regime that is a warmonger, want to be part of the equation as peacemakers. We want to be at peace with our world, with our region. Iranians have no hostility or animosity to the Jewish state, to our Israeli friends and the Jews, or for that matter, the Arabs or the Saudis or anybody else. That's why when I went to Jerusalem almost 2 years ago, one of the things I mentioned to the leadership there and other Israelis was, imagine if we had an elevation of the Abraham Accords to the Cyrus Accords, which would include Iran into that equation as a viable partner. This regime cannot change its behavior as it cannot change its DNA. What needs to happen is a change of regime, not because the outside world says so, but because the Iranian people want so. But once the regime is gone, any existential threat to Israel, any instability in the region, any threat coming by via funding terrorism or radicalism or whatever it is, including of course the nuclear threat, they will all evaporate at the same time. Now there's a window of opportunity that we have right in front of us. Before there's an escalation of conflict, if the situation doesn't resolve itself by means of diplomacy. Meaning that together with external pressure in terms of maximum pressure approach that, of course, President Trump is pursuing, there needs to be parallel to that a policy of maximum support. So the Iranian people have an actual fair chance of overcoming the regime by bringing pressure from within.
That sounds like a very good plan. And you're saying that there's a window of opportunity. And so what do the world's superpowers need to do to bring stability to the Middle East?
Well, the quickest way is to be gone with this regime. Why? Because the minute this regime is gone, you have the erasure of all the threatening aspect of this regime that is conducive to instability and conflict. You immediately have a change of pace where the focus now is for Iran to go through a transition phase while maintaining stability at home, but immediately engage with our regional strategic partners. Israel definitely is a key strategic partner for us. Hopefully we can work very well with the Saudis, with the Emiratis, but to immediately bring an element that reverses this whole cycle of instability that existed. We don't need to have superpowers to police our region anymore. Donald Trump, at the end of the day, is a businessman. He knows what's conducive to good business. But in order to get to that point, you have to have stability. So this regime has a corrupt paramilitary mafia that conducts every aspect of Iran's economy.
Wow.
How could you expect people to survive? They can barely afford to buy a kilo of potato. Forget about meat. They can't even afford that. How long do you think that's going to last? When we bring sanity, transparency, accountability, a free economy that is directly conducive to stable governance, and stable governance is conducive to a good economy. It's all as a result of that fundamental change that can occur in Iran. And I think we Iranians are prepared to do our part. What we need now is a partnership with the free world to stop their policy of appeasement and paying ransom for a regime that takes hostages to make a bargain in exchange.
So it is a matter of timing, and I think Israel is asking itself, is it the right time to attack Iran's nuclear facilities in order to do that, to get to that? And is this the way?
Again, this window of opportunity is such that before having to come to the threshold of having to intervene, albeit preemptively, to stop that threat, you have an opportunity to eradicate the regime once and for all, thereby not even having to engage militarily to secure our existential issues. The Iranian people would understand if Israel were to take the initiative. What they wouldn't understand is, why is the world waiting for? The last campaign that the regime launched was over $2.3 billion worth that could have been used to build schools and hospitals. They haven't used that for Iran. So I think the understanding is there. Therefore, I believe that somebody like Prime Minister Netanyahu, hopefully someone like Donald Trump, who today is well surrounded. I had meetings with his national security advisor, and I know Marco Rubio fairly well. I've met him many times. Perhaps the first American Secretary of State that gets it, that actually understands ever since the revolution. So I think the planets are aligning very well for us this time. That's a unique opportunity not to miss. It's not going to just change Iran and the Middle East. This is a game changer for the entire world. So we need to be much more on the same frequency here. And that's part of the reason I've been traveling within Europe and talking to the European side, who are much further behind the curve. They need to catch up to where we are right now.
It sounds like what you're saying makes so much sense. And I hear that you're in touch with Trump's people, but the question is, are you in contact with the American president? Are you collaborating? And do you intend to return to power?
Look, I've always said that my role today, and that's what the people of Iran trust me for and count on, is to be a leader of transition. We need to have a democratic transition from when we are today. And I've been offering a 5-point plan campaign as to how we get there. Between now and until the regime collapses, and after the collapse, how do we fill in the void and manage that transition? And this time the Iranian people will have a clear idea of the options available to them, and by means of a national referendum, they will vote and decide through the ballot box in a majority vote what they want.
It does seem like it's the proper time, and God willing, very soon there will be a toppling of the regime and a more peaceful existence, not only in the Middle East, but in the world at large. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button. And if you really want to stay in touch, @Pinchas Taylor at Instagram is another way to do it. Have a wonderful day, everybody.